evening and welcome to Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. My name is Beatrice.
And I am Alfred, Ocansey.
The news is also live on Kesme 107.1 FM and across the world at 3news.com. You're also streaming live on our Facebook page, 3FM 92.7. Coming up in the next 90 minutes, a primary defendant in ongoing ambulance trial, Dr. Kesel Atuforsen, instructs his legal team to petition the Chief Justice to televise the remainder of the proceedings.
Also this evening, Organised Labour and the Minister of Employment and Labour Relations presently in a crunch meeting over the sale of the SSNIT hotels to a private citizen, and Minister for Agriculture and MP for Beatrice, Brian Champong.
Plus, Majority Caucus in Parliament accusing the minority of attempting to sabotage Ghana's economic growth through their persistent opposition to some tax waivers currently under consideration by the House.
We have the latest in business and sports here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. Also live on Kesme 107.1 in Tamale and beyond, and also on W93.5 in Wa and beyond. Let's get some more. A summary of the news with Grace Amor Jiman.
Yes, Alfred, let's get straight into it. And Dr. Kesel Atuforsen, the primary defendant in the ongoing ambulance trial, has instructed his legal team to petition the Chief Justice to televise the remainder of the proceedings. This request was detailed in a letter from his lawyers to the Chief Justice on Thursday, May 30. Dr. Atuforsen explained on social media that this move is prompted by recent allegations of misconduct against Attorney General Alfred. Also, the Vice Chairman of Parliament's Committee on Communications, Sylvester Tete, says the committee will summon the Communications Minister Ursula Uswekufo when Parliament resumes from recess. The comment comes as questions are raised about how a company that supposedly registered its activities recently got a 10-year exclusivity contract from the government last year. Meanwhile, the Minister for Communications and Digitalization, Ursula Owusu, has set the record straight regarding the viability of the company granted access to commercially operates 5G spectrum in the country. It has been alleged that Next Gen Infrastructure Company was established within a week but received presidential authorization to build a neutral shared infrastructure to operate 4 and 5 spectrums. The management and board members of the Social Security and National Insurance Trust SSNIT held a crunch meeting with members of Organised Labour to discuss the sale of 60% shares in some hotels to the Minister of Food and Agriculture, Brian Champong. After the meeting, the Secretary General of the TUC, Dr. Anthony Yaba, said the chairperson of the board of SSNIT, Elizabeth Ohene, told them that SSNIT is not soliciting views before proceeding with any agreement. That's it for the news summaries.
Grace Amajiman, thank you so much. Just more news on 3news.com. Make some time and visit 3news.com. This is Hot Edition. We're live on Kesme 107.1 in Tamale and beyond, and also on W93.5 in Wa and beyond. We start off with the petition by the lawyers of the first defendant, that's the first accused in this particular case of the ambulance trial. I'm talking about Dr. Kesel Atuforsen, instructing his lawyers to have the rest of this case telecast live for us all to see. What are the details in there?
Indeed, Alfred, and the primary defendant in the ongoing ambulance trial, like you just said, Dr. Kesel Atuforsen, has instructed his legal team to petition the Chief Justice to televise the remainder of the proceedings. This request was detailed in a letter from his lawyers to the Chief Justice on Thursday, May 30. Dr. Atuforsen explained on social media that this move is prompted by recent allegations of misconduct against the Attorney General, Alfred. Remember that last week, Richard Japa, who is the third accused, claimed that the Attorney General had encouraged him to provide false testimony against Dr. Atuforsen in his trial. And we'll be bringing you details contained in that letter by Atuforsen to the Chief Justice, Alfred.
Indeed, and then we have a copy of that letter. If you go on our Facebook page at 3FM927, you see the details of that letter as put out by Dr. Kesel Atuforsen. In fact, if you go on his X page, he is giving details as to why, in his view, it's imperative for this to be done. On our Facebook page at 3FM927, he says, in the wake of the recent expose concerning the alleged misconduct. And this is Dr. Kesela Toforcing just typing in there, indicating that based on this misconduct of the Attorney General, Godfrey Yeboah Dame, he has instructed his lawyers to petition the Chief Justice for the live broadcast of the rest of the proceedings of this ambulance trial case. Now, the details of the letter, as with the headline, request for full media access, including live broadcast of subsequent court proceedings. It reads, 1. We represent and hold the instructions of the Honorable Dr. Kesela Toforcing, our client, in respect of the above referenced case, which is pending before the High Court, Accra, Financial and Economic Division 2. Republic versus Kesela Toforcing and 2 others. And this is on the letterhead of Aziz Bamba and Associates, as received today, the 30th of May 2024, addressed to Her Ladyship, the Chief Justice, Office of the Chief Justice, Judicial Service of Ghana. It continues, we write to formally request the live broadcast of all subsequent court proceedings in the case of the Republic versus Kesela Toforcing and 2 others, case number CR 0198/2022. This request is made on behalf of our client in the light of recent developments that have significantly impacted public perception of the case and the administration of justice. Our client, Honorable Dr. Kesela Toforcing, is a minority leader in Parliament and a member of Parliament for the Jumakon Enyan Esiam constituency in the Central Region of Ghana. He was arraigned before the High Court, Accra, Financial and Economic Division 2 on 17th of January 2022 and charged with willfully causing financial loss to the Republic and intentionally misapplying public property. He pleaded not guilty to the charges. The prosecution closed its case on 14th of February 2023, and on a submission of no case, the court ruled that the accused persons, including our client, had a case to answer. In the ruling on the submission of no case to answer, the trial court held inter alia as follows. On the part of A1, that's the first accused, he insisted that he had the authority of the Minister of Finance, whose deputy he was, to issue the request. That said, however, the law is clear that where a negative averment is made, in this case, that the first accused acted without authority, and then there is a positive one, the onus is on the one making the positive assertion to prove the positive. In such circumstances, it is for the first accused to adduce evidence to show that he had authority. The burden on the accused person, however, is not as high as that on the prosecution. The accused person only needs to raise a reasonable doubt. That's in page 43 of the ruling. And it's on the basis of this, they say, and they're asking that the Chief Justice considers the petition for the live telecast of the rest of this particular ambulance purchase trial. And we'll see what happens going forward and what the response of the Chief Justice will be to this petition by the lawyers of Dr. Kesela Toforcing. And we have a conversation on this, we do.
Indeed, and we do have Abraham Amaliba. He's a private legal practitioner. He joins us live on the line. Good evening to you, sir. Thank you for joining us on Hot Edition.
Thank you for having me.
This request is at the discretion of the Chief Justice, I believe. You believe so, to grant it, as it were. Why do you think it is essential for this to be done at this time?
Well, the Constitution provides that justice emanates from the people, and the judiciary is just a trustee of that justice. So the justice belongs to the people of Ghana. And so if you follow the events that took place last week, you realize that at a certain point during the hearing, matters that emanated from that court generated a lot of public debate and concern, particularly the conduct of the Attorney General. It is for this reason that I think lawyers for Toforcing decided that if justice emanates from the people must be allowed to follow these proceedings so that the people can make their own informed decision when this matter ends.
So that the people will make their own decisions, but is the court that really decides the outcome of the case based on the evidence that it will have to review?
No, the court will do what you are saying, but what I mean is that the public, the Ghanaian people, who are the owners of the justice, will come to a conclusion that justice has been served. And I need to let you understand one other thing, that a person who is standing trial must have trust in the justice system enough to accept any verdict that comes from the court. But the way it is now, I'm sure Ato Forson and his lawyers do not trust the Attorney General to do a good job in this matter.
Mr. Maliba, you are equally a member of the NDC legal team, the opposition party that is solidly behind its minority leader in Parliament. Yes, you've made the point about the general public making its own conclusions about this very case, but what will it mean for the NDC as a party?
Well, the NDC is a stakeholder in the governance of this country. The NDC feels appalled at the conduct of the Attorney General. And so the NDC is excited that this request is coming. And this request, if granted, would bring about transparency, just as how Ato Forson stated in his letter, or his lawyer stated in his letter. At the end of the day, if proceedings are clear and everybody knows that no justice has been tampered with, the NDC will live with it. But for now, the NDC is suspicious of the Attorney General continuing to conduct this matter.
Can it also be interpreted that should the case go in your favor, as the NDC has, said in the past, you think it would prove your point that the governing party has been witch hunting Dr. Kaysel Ato Forson?
I don't want us to jump the gun, but the NDC has maintained that Ato Forson has not committed any offense. According to the NDC, once it is clear within the court system, and it is a testimony by the former finance minister, Setepe, that he authorized Ato Forson to write the letter requesting for the LCs. To the NDC, this matter comes to an end. It is not as if Ato Forson went his way to misconduct himself while he was in office, but he acted upon the instructions of his minister. So any decision to vindicate the rights of Ato Forson as not having committed an offense will be a welcome news for the NDC.
How is the party going to take it should the CJ decide not to grant this petition?
Well, then that was mark of selective justice, if I should put it that way, because not long ago, the Attorney General, who is today being questioned of his conduct, wrote to the Chief Justice for live telecast of the LGBTQ plus matters in court, and that was granted. So if today, based upon the misconduct of the Attorney General, a similar letter is written to ensure that there's transparency and fairness, and that is turned down, then people will begin to also ask questions about that.
You wouldn't think that turning it down would be also at her discretion?
Say it again?
You wouldn't think that turning it down will also be at her discretion, because all of that is within her discretion?
The discretion must be exercised in a way that is fair, that is candid, and ensure that all manner of persons are satisfied with the discretion. What is good for the goose is equally good for the gander.
We'll have to end it here. Thank you very much, Abraham Amaliba. He is a member of the NDC's legal team, speaking to us on this very case.
And in fact, let's stay a bit further on this matter. 17 minutes after 5. When you go on to Dr. Kaysel Ato Forson's X page, in which I'm on right now, he lists a number of reasons why. He says a live broadcast of this trial would serve several important reasons and purposes. First of all, it would ensure that the public has full access to the evidence and arguments presented in court. This would allow citizens to form their own informed opinions about the case and hold participants accountable for their actions. Secondly, a live broadcast would promote transparency and accountability within the legal system. By making the proceedings accessible to all, we can help to ensure that justice is served fairly and impartially. Thirdly, live broadcasts will serve as a powerful deterrent against future misconduct by the Attorney General, knowing that their actions will be subject to public scrutiny. Those involved in the legal system are more likely to uphold the highest ethical standards. He continues, I believe that live broadcast of the ambulance trial is essential to ensuring a fair and just outcome. It is the best interest of both the public and legal system that these proceedings be conducted with the utmost transparency. And that's what he's urging the Chief Justice to grant this request. And see how things
reiterating
play
the points Abraham Amaliba just gave us.
Indeed, and let's stay a bit further on this because there are other groups apart from Arise Ghana who issued a statement yesterday aligning with the calls for the Attorney General to be sacked by the President if he does not resign by himself. And then you've also heard the former director of the Ghana School of Law, Mr. Sansari, also making that call, and also an associate professor of law at the University of Ghana Law School, Professor Chia, has also made that call, also indicating that if the Attorney General does not resign, the President should sack him. The Alliance for Security, the Social Equity and Public Accountability, that's ASEPA, they've added their voice as well to this growing calls for the resignation and dismissal of the Attorney General, Godfrey Yeboah Dame. And ASEPA expressed disappointment at the silence of the Ghana Bar Association and the Presidency, urging them to take a stance on the Executive Director of ASEPA. Mensa Thompson is joining me on the telephone. Appreciate your time. Mr. Thompson, good evening, if you can hear me.
Yes, good evening, Alfred.
Great.
Many thanks for having me.
Great. Now, well, so far, the Ghana Bar Association has not spoken. The presidency has not spoken about this, but the NPP has spoken, and they say that the calls for Godfrey Dame to be sacked are baseless, misplaced. The Deputy Attorney General, Alfred Yeboah, says, well, this is a mere allegation, and Godfrey Yeboah Dame will be at post and continue to do his job. That's the reaction to you.
Yes, Alfred. Alfred, this very issue goes to the heart of our criminal justice system, and is an issue that cannot be left to the usual political banter between the NPP and the NDC. I don't know how you see this matter, but for advocates like ourselves who are interested in the criminal justice system, who have been advocating for a number of reforms in our justice administration system, we see this evidence coming out as a huge dent in the image of the country. Not just the country, it's a huge dent on the image of the entire legal profession. Because if I have to remind you, the Attorney General is the leader of the bar. And so what is happening now with the leader of the bar being caught in a witness tampering spree in a clear attempt to undermine that institution of justice, the extension is that image which has been created for the Attorney General is an image crisis which we believe Mr. Godfrey Dame, the Attorney General, cannot recover from. But that image crisis has the propensity to extend onto the general bar of the Republic of Ghana and the practice of law. And so tomorrow, if a lawyer is being recommended to do a job in another jurisdiction, the first question that probably may come to the mind of their people is that, are you sure you're going to conform to the standards of the profession? Are you going to be an ethical lawyer? Because definitely, the legal profession takes its ethics very, very seriously. It is one of the professions that doesn't joke with its standards. And so, for the Attorney General to be violating the entire standard, it projects onto the general bar, and that is why it is important for the bar
Association to come out and condemn the conduct of the Attorney General and dissociate itself, so that we know that, yes, lawyers in Ghana are not like that. Lawyers in Ghana are ethical. They conform to the rules of the game. They don't undermine judicial justice. They don't undermine fairness and the principle of natural justice. They allow the processes to run. It is only Mr. Dame who violated the very oath he swore to protect, who engaged in that. And so then the credibility crisis then only is limited to Mr. Godfrey Dame, who has been caught in this web of vicious credibility crisis. Then the bar can then escape a little bit. Otherwise, the silence of the Ghana Bar Association now is deafening. The silence of the Ghana Bar Association now is a tacit endorsement of the conduct of Mr. Godfrey Dame. And if the bar doesn't come out, their inaction will be seen as an endorsement by the public. And we do not want to have a bar that is supposed to protect social accountability in the country, a bar that is supposed to protect the citizens, a bar that should be advocating for the rule of law to ensure the principle of natural justice and fair hearing to all manner of persons as enshrined by our laws. The bar that is supposed to be defending this cannot be seen as the same bar led by somebody who is undermining it, and that's why Mr. Dame must resign. But the bar must speak up so that we know that the bar profoundly and in principle do not appreciate the conduct or do not for what it's worth, do not associate itself with the conduct of Mr. Godfrey Dame. That is the only way the bar can escape any extension of credibility crisis that may be extended to them. Up until now, what we have now, the bar is looking very, very bad. The general bar and practice of law in Ghana is under threat until the Ghana Bar Association's voice is heard.
I see. What exactly would you expect the Ghana Bar Association to do? What action would you expect them to take? Because I'm reading from the likes of Dr. Justice Shremsai, who make the point that if any punitive measure has to be taken, to the extent that he is leading the bar, what exactly can the bar do in punishing the leader of this same bar?
So Mr. Dame is the leader of the bar, but not the president of the Bar Association. There's a reason why there is an executive body of the Ghana Bar Association, which is not run by the Attorney General. That executive committee of the Bar Association needs to condemn the conduct of the leader of the bar. The same way when our president acts in a manner that we are not happy about, even though we are still citizens of this country, we condemn the act of the president. And so if the leader of the bar has taken actions or has conducted himself in ways and manner that undermines the very oath of office is sworn to protect, then the bar must come out and dissociate themselves from that conduct. But most importantly, condemn it so that everybody, especially the international community, Alfred, do you know how many millions of dollars developmental partners and international organizations are spending in this country every year for criminal justice reform to strengthen the principles of natural justice, freedom of expression, fair hearing, and what have you? Now, what is happening is a dent. Mr. Dame's conduct has undermined the image of the country and all the progress we've made in the reforms and the advocacies that we've made. And so, as a sort of assurance for our developmental agencies and development partners that we do not subscribe to the conduct of the Attorney General, there must be nothing else but utter condemnation. And that condemnation must come from everyone else, including the Bar Association, the presidency, and even the government. The government itself has questions to answer, but we'll leave them for another day. Now the attention is on the Bar Association. We must highlight the silence of the Bar Association. I'm very passionate about this because it extends onto all lawyers and the practice of law. And anybody who practices law outside the country or have any legal consultants outside the country will suffer some sort of credibility crisis because of the conduct of the Attorney General, who is the leader of the bar. See,
now the NDC has already given indication and notice that they are going to petition the General Legal Council instead of the Ghana Bar Association. the General Legal Counsel to act on this matter, because they have that locus to be able to, as it were, exert some punishment.
Absolutely. They when it comes to the powers to exert sanctions on the conduct of the Attorney General, the jurisdiction lies with the General Legal Counsel. But that does not stop the Bar Association from condemning the conduct of the Attorney General and dissociating itself from the conduct. I think what the Bar Association, we are not asking the Bar Association to punish the Attorney General. We are saying that as a matter of principle, and in protecting the image of all lawyers and credibility of lawyers and the practice of law in this country, come out and dissociate yourself from the conduct of the Attorney General, who have breached all the ethical standards that the profession stands for, including contacting a witness in a case at the blind side of his lawyers. That is one of the most. It's a below the belt conduct by the Attorney General in terms of legal ethics, and this is what the Bar stands to protect. And so it's important that the Bar would dissociate itself and say, look, we Ghanaian lawyers, we are not like this. We respect the rules of the game, we play according to the rules of court, and we do not undermine the judicial processes and the administration of justice in such a reckless and vicious manner as the Attorney General sought to do. And so we are condemning its conduct and dissociating ourselves from it. We uphold the principle of rule of law. We uphold the due processes and the practice of law in this country, and we do not undermine it. Then the Bar Association have distinguished itself from the conduct of the Attorney General. Until that is done, the general image of the Attorney General, together with the image of the Bar Association in Ghana, is in the gutter until the Bar Association comes out.
Mensa, appreciate your time. Thank you.
Many thanks for having me.
Mensa Thompson is Executive of the Alliance for Social Equity and Public Accountability, ASEPA. There.
Let's bring in some other issues, because organized labor and the Minister of Employment and Labor Relations are presently in a crunch meeting over the sale of SSNIT hotels to a private citizen. This is after President Akufo-Addo directed the minister to engage the members of organized labor who have opposed the deal vehemently. Let's quickly cross over to Daniel Opoku, who is our labor affairs correspondent. He's currently at the meeting. Daniel, is this meeting open to the media first off, and what have you been able to gather from it so far?
Right, so good evening to you, Beatrice. It's a closed-door meeting for the second time after they met this morning with SSNIT. And so it's a closed-door meeting. I have spotted the leadership of organized labor and also the Sector Minister of Employment and Labor Relations, who's also in charge of pensions. Then also the Director General of SSNIT. All of them are in the meeting currently trying to discuss and scratch out issues. But what I've been able to gain is the fact that labor is still on its position. Labor has taken an entrenched position that it will not allow the sale of the 60% in the 4 hotels to Mr. Bayane Champon, even though there have been some discussions trying to convince organized labor to accept the deal or to reach a consensus. That has become a problem. So as I speak to you currently, labor has been very adamant and very firm on its decision that will not accept the sale of the hotels to Mr. Bayane Champon.
So, Daniel, remind us again, Labour already seems to have an unmoving stance, as it were. What will be the purpose for this meeting? What is it supposed to achieve?
Right. So, with the current position of Labour, them having an entrenched position clearly means that, one, government must go ahead to cancel the deal, or SSNIT must cancel the deal, or there should be some kind of a discussion between Labour and Labour and government, or the president should step in, because the Minister of Employment and Labour Relations, in case he fails to address the issue, then obviously the president must step in. Now, the argument will be trying to negotiate the percentage, probably reduce the 60% to either 15 or 20 or 25% or maximum 30%. Then the rest of the percentage will go in favor of Labour. That is where the discussions are going. But when we listen to the body language of organized labor, they are not ready to negotiate any percentage, whether up or down. What they want is the deal to be cancelled. And already, SSNIT says that it is gathering soliciting views from its members and people who have expressed interest in that. So SSNIT is saying that they have not concluded on whether to sell the hotels to Mr. Bayane Champon. That is the issue. These are the issues going on currently. We are hoping that by close in the next 10 or 15 minutes, they should end the meeting. Then finally, they'll be briefing the media as to what they have been able to conclude. And let's not forget, once the sector minister had the express mandate of the president, he has to also report to the presidency. That is what he will be mandated to do.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Daniel Opoku, Labour Affairs correspondent. Let's also bring you a reminder that the Member of Parliament for North Tongue, Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa, the man who exposed this deal, has been speaking about this meeting and why he thinks it is not necessary.
The president has the authority to simply instruct his appointees to cancel this transaction, to back off from this deal, which is clearly not in the national interest. That is what we want to hear. The president should not act as though he's one of us, as if he's powerless and asking people to go and have meetings. He has the authority. I mean, he told us that he has cautioned all his appointees that if you want to engage in deals of this nature, you want to do big transactions and make money, stay in the private sector. That's where money is made. Don't come and use my public office and use it for deals that do not benefit the nation. That's what the president told us.
Right.
And this has all the traits, all the characteristics of the assurances the president gave us that he will not tolerate and he will not entertain.
And you heard the North Tongue MP Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa. You heard Daniel Opoku telling us about the stance of organized labor. Let's listen to the Secretary General of the Trades Union Congress, Dr. Anthony Yalban, emphasizing that point Daniel made to us earlier.
Yes, I agree with you that the national interest is huge. And so we, as I said earlier, SSNIT board wrote to us requesting for this meeting. And as you know, it's about SSNIT, especially the sale of 60% of SSNIT stake in 4 hotels. You know, we wrote to SSNIT board, we wrote to the chief of staff, we wrote to the minister in charge of pension, and our demand was straightforward: cancel the deal. And this meeting was about that. In their letter requesting for this meeting, they said they have taken a very serious note of all the points we made in that letter we sent earlier. So our discussion centered around that. SSNIT says that they have not made a decision to sell the stake of SSNIT in these 4 hotels to anyone. They are still considering proposals, and that they are listening, given what has happened. They are listening. And so this meeting was one of the sessions that allowed them to listen. And our advice was very simple and straightforward. We said, please, given all what has happened, cancel the deal, convene a stakeholder meeting. There are a number of issues that have come up about SSNIT in the last couple of weeks. Let us take them one after the other. And what we concluded was that we are ready to work together with SSNIT board to make sure that the image that has gone out about SSNIT is changed. But more importantly, we want to work together as stakeholders.
You had the Secretary General of the Trades Union Congress, Dr. Anthony Yalban. Here's the Executive Secretary of the Civil and Local Government Association, Isaac Bampoado, who also spoke to journalists after an earlier meeting today.
It's not an issue of organized labor. This is an issue of workers of this country. We have listened to the SSNIT board led by their chair. And I will say, we're not convinced. There were so many negatives in the transaction that we have pointed it out to them. How can you go through a tender process and you give specifications, and then along the line, you change the specifications? Our Procurement Act doesn't allow this. We've told them to cancel the deal. That was our advice to them. Cancel the deal. We will not be part of this deal.
Right, Doc, but you're talking about now workers should actually hold SSNIT, that should have total control of SSNIT. But the Pensions Act does not say that. Would you propose an amendment of the portion where it gives a lot of mandate to the president to do the appointment?
What we are saying is that the Act 766 give control to workers when it comes to their second tier and they are performing. the same thing should happen to Tier 1. We will take control. This is our money, and we will take control.
Yes. Now, when the leadership or the delegation of SSNIT walked out, or they came into the meeting, the various discussions that you are very confident that they are not going to.
They dare not.
Because they said they are listening.
They dare not. We've told them in plain language, they dare not. They dare not go ahead with this. We've told them.
So until the stakeholders and stakeholder engagement.
Whether stakeholder or no stakeholder, they dare not go ahead with this deal.
But it appears they are trying so much to convince you to allow.
That's why I'm saying we're not convinced, and we tell them in plain language. We are not convinced with what you are telling us.
You have Isaac Bampado. He's the Executive Secretary of the Civil and Local Government Association, CLOCSAC.
Well, quite livid there, is it not? Just a reflection of the sentiments of the workers and the civil service and all of us who are contributors to the SSNIT scheme, for that matter. Well, Austin Game, who is a labor expert, says the organized labor leadership should go into the meetings with the Minister of Employment and Labour Relations as instructed by the President and the SSNIT leadership with the welfare of the workers in mind.
Honestly, Labour is fully aware that they are representing millions and millions of people who directly own these monies that are being invested in trust. And again, holding it in trust for them. And that people will be at the vulnerable state at the time of having access to the pension. And therefore, they are not going to the meeting as individuals who are just speaking because they are union leaders. The vulnerability, life and death of the people whose money are being held in trust by SSNIT is on the hands of the organized labor leadership. So whatever they say, their conscience should prick them and to know that under no circumstance should they represent and make decision on our behalf, not having the consent of the people which has already been expressed seriously. And therefore, I have confidence in them that they are men of good conscience and of integrity, and that the President himself, of course, being the #1 gentleman of the land, fully aware of the fact that the people whose matter is being talked about are at their vulnerable state, that nothing can be done to satisfy any individual or group of people at their expense.
Perfect point. But, so Game, should this controversial transaction as it's turning out to be between SSNIT and Rock City, owned by Brian Champong, the Greek minister MP for Beatrice, trigger a holistic review of SSNIT's investment portfolio, so we know where they have put our monies, workers, pensioners, where they have put our monies, which investments have they put our monies into, and how things are playing out now, so we're all not taken by surprise. Should it lead to that holistic review?
Even if they don't say it, it will happen. And it is going to be compulsory and will have to be done, no matter what. Now people will have to become interested in those who are selected to be on the board of SSNIT. And I would like to know at certain stages, key decision-making meetings, such as investment decisions to be made, the people whose money they hold, to some extent, must be consulted. In some of them, not all, but such as key things like sale of hotels or other business interests, and how the scheme is faring. We must be interested.
As Austin Government there is a labor expert sharing his thoughts on the meetings that the president has directed the Employment and Labor Relations Minister to have with the leadership of organized labor concerning this intention of SSNIT to sell some 60% of its stake in some 4 hotels to the company owned by a Greek minister, Brian Champong. That's Rock City Hotels. Now, let's go on to some of the stories here on Hot Edition. The majority caucus in Parliament is accusing the minority caucus of attempting to sabotage Ghana's economic growth through their persistent opposition to some tax waivers currently under consideration by the House. They're up to $400 million worth of tax waiver requests that have been pending at the Finance Committee for over 3 years, entangled in a political stalemate. Speaking to journalists in Parliament, the Majority Leader, Alexander Peña-Makin, said the NDC were being hypocritical. Let's take a listen to him.
MPS was exempt from corporate income tax for 10 years and a reduced corporate tax of 15% after 10 years for additional 5 years. Again, MPS was excluded from paying taxes on dividend to shareholders for 20 years. When I describe the NDC as being politically hypocritical, I say so with emphasis and ground same on fact. These were people who were in government, did the worst in government, and you have a new government that is taking this country to a new level of industrialization, well guided and well regulated. They would come and criticize. They gave one company, MPS, a tax waiver of $832 million. Now, under the 1D1F, all the 42 companies that government has so far brought to Parliament for a waiver, the total waiver being requested, being applied for by government, is not even up to 450 million. And these are Ghanaian companies. These are companies that are registered in Ghana.
Well, so that's the Majority Leader, an MP for the Futu constituency, Alexander Peña-Makin there. Let's stay on this matter and stay in Parliament just a bit further and have a conversation on this matter while we keep an eye on what happened earlier today with the Communications Minister, Esla Osu-Akufo, addressing the press on a deal that the Parliamentary Select Committee on Communications is not fully aware.
It's talking about it, and indeed the committee has served notice to hold the Communications and Digitalization Minister, Esla Osu-Akufo, before the House to answer questions on that deal you talk about, which is the recent 5G contract. Now, the handout of the 5G internet service to a newly incorporated company with a seemingly no technical expertise has raised eyebrows over the propriety of the agreement and whether or not procurement laws have been followed. The details made available by investigative journalist Manasseh Azare Awene suggest that President Akufo-Addo has, via an executive instrument, instructed the country's 5G technology to be handed to just one company, NextGen Infraco Limited. Now, correspondence between the National Communications Authority and the Communications Minister also reveal up to 10-year contract which makes NextGen Infraco the only entity closed with the power to operate 5G technology in the country, with telecommunication companies expected to tap into its service to operate on the 5G bandwidth. The Communications Minister, Esla Osu-Akufo, has mounted a spirited defense of this award and to this company, NextGen Infraco Limited, to roll out Ghana's 5G infrastructure. Let's listen to what she told journalists at that press conference.
We have Ascend Digital Solutions, which is the only company I know in this country that is setting up and managing shared infrastructure, i.e. our rural telephony network, in conjunction with 2 Chinese companies. They are the only local company that I know of that are currently operating and managing the shared rural telephony network. KNET is also the only company that I know that is operating a shared digital terrestrial broadcasting platform for all TV reception in this country. That is what influenced the choice of these two companies, because they have proven track record in operating and managing shared infrastructure. They have also invited all mobile network operators to be partners in the consortium. So every mobile network operator operating in this country has been invited to be part of the consortium. The conversation started with some, and it's continuing with the rest of them. So no mobile network operator in this country will be left out. They will all own shares in NGIC. Other private investors who've also expressed interest will also be part of this consortium. The government of Ghana will retain a small percentage in this consortium. There is a reason why we chose this model. And based on our experiences with rural telephony, where the government rolled out the infrastructure, and the network operators are utilizing it to provide services in areas where they would ordinarily not go, we are hopeful that this would also lead us to, within the next 3 years, expand 4G coverage from the current 15% to 80%, and that will be a record on the continent.
You have the Minister for Communications and Digitalization, but the chair of the Communications Committee of Parliament, Vice Chair actually, Sylvester Tete, says Eslo Usokuful has some questions to answer when the House resumes.
We could have decided to auction it, go for the tender, get the highest bidder, auction your 5G and get your money and leave it.
So
the experience of 4G, please, the experience of 4G has taught us, let government and active players own it as a co-share, so that when we all own it, nobody is played out. So that everybody will have a share of the cake. So government will slowly take its money. Because the investment we are talking here, everybody, including going to public, for you and I to participate in the process of owning a part of it. So once you are dealing with special purpose vehicle, then the matter of procurement, having to go for tender and all this does not arise here.
Mr. Tete,
so the issue of a 1 month or 1 week or 1 day company is neither here nor there.
So you don't find anything wrong with how the government went about this?
How did the government went about it? Government decision is that we are not auctioning it. We want to own it together with the key players in the industry. So it is owned by government of Ghana with the partners.
7.5%, and that is for the government.
It is the best deal compared to what we did to the 2G, 3G, and 4G.
I'll come to you.
I've told you, from 2015, check, the 4G we auctioned, and somebody bought it.
Is it necessary? Is it necessary to bring what happened under the other administration?
It is to guide our forward march.
Is that not the problem when we are always politicizing?
From 4G to 5G, this is not politics.
But you're comparing what you've done now to what happened in the past. Is that not the problem?
But if you are not guided by what happened in the past, how do you move on? And I'm telling you, you must be concerned about the fact that we auctioned 4G to a company that has so monopoly over it. It has slowed down business to the extent that as we sit here, they are not concerned by going to the district where business is not growing. So they are taking Accra, 15% market share from 2015 till date. You should be concerned about it.
Mr. Senano,
rolling out a nationwide policy where every industry player is a partaker of the particular company we are talking about. So that when my mother in Asim Pusu, my brother in Pungungu will enjoy the 5G, nobody has monopoly to say that I can only serve Tema, Accra, and Kumasi. My position from the beginning was that we are aware of the process, but the details as it is now, the committee has not been briefed. And I think that when we reconvene, Parliament will be duly briefed. That is my position.
So the Communications Committee is going to take this up. That's what you're telling me indirectly.
Come again?
The Communications Committee of Parliament is going to take this thing up when you reconvene or you resume. That's what you're saying.
We will summon the minister for proper briefing to Parliament, as we've always done.
That was the Vice Chair of the Communications Committee of Parliament, Sylvester Tete. Alfred.
Well, this is a matter that has got a lot a lot of you out there talking, and we'll go on to our various social media handles in a bit. But there's been some reactions as well coming through from that position taken by the majority caucus in Parliament, accusing the minority caucus that they are attempting to sabotage Ghana's economic growth through their persistent opposition to some tax waivers currently under consideration. We're talking about almost $400 million worth of tax waivers. That is money that the economy is going to lose.
$400 million.
$400 million. We are the IMF for $3 billion, right? And we want to give away $400 million in tax waivers, and so the majority says, well, this is something that has been going on. So really, what's the locus of the NDC to even raise any question about this? Let's have a conversation on this matter. The Honorable Vincent Opong Asamoah is Member of Parliament for the Doma West constituency in the Bono region. It's also the ranking on the Works and Housing Committee of Parliament. And we appreciate your time. Thank you very much for joining us here on Hot Edition. Now, so the majority leader, in addressing the press earlier today, makes reference to tax waivers that were granted during the ex-while NDC administration. And that's the justification for this almost 400 million tax waiver that he wants you as a minority to cooperate with them to approve. Does that suffice?
If you allow me, or if you permit me, please, let me digress a bit. I will not talk about the tax waiver. I'm the ranking member for Works and Housing Committee. You know, when we were recalled recently, we came and approved $150 million for the Gary project. Any time it rains in Accra, and you see flooding everywhere, that should tell you some of the things that this government has done. Or 4 years ago, you know, World Bank approved $200 million, not Ghana City, $200 million for projects that were supposed to reduce the flooding situation in Accra. I'll speak with you. The last time we came and we visited the site, they paid only $8 million to contractors. 4 years, they've paid only $8 million to contractors. So the rest of the money you ask them, they don't even know how that money was expended. So as a minority, a responsible minority, you want to get additional $150 million, we come and then we compromise and then we approve $150 million for you. Is that what they are telling the minority? Majority is telling us. The minority will not sit down to be tainted with those corrupt deals. We will not be part of it. So at least our position was so clear on the $150 million, but of course they are the majority. They use their majority to pass the money. But let me tell you, a day will come that you will account for every dollar that was given to them by the World Bank for the Gary project. And when it rained the last time, you saw the consequences of the rain. And this $200 million have been spent. Upon Nkrumah came to the House at the committee level, he wanted to give us details on how the money was spent. And the indication was that only $8 million have been paid as advance mobilization to contractors. But they are unable to tell us the remaining money, how that money was used. And the minority will say, no, we will not approve the $150 million if you are unable to account for the earlier $200 million. And they will use their majority to approve that money. And they go around there and say, we are disrupting government business. We will not be part of their shady deals. We know that previously, at least there used to be tax exemptions and those things. We used to. But if it is very unnecessary at this time that we are looking for IMF bailouts, and $400 million you want us to give you tax exemption, we know the repercussions of some of these things. And you know, most of these things are shrouded in corrupt practices. And we didn't want to be talking about some of these, and we know what they do. They will approve it, and they will allow something back to their party for their campaign activities. So when you see them religiously, all of them, singing from one page of the hymn book, That should tell you what they are looking for. And even though I've made lots of allegations, but that is what is happening. And let me tell you, the responsible minority in Parliament will not be part of some of these shady deals. They have their majority. They can use their majority to pass it. But I tell you, the minority under the leadership of Atto-Forson will never yield to the pressure that is coming from the New Patriotic Party.
So this press conference and this allegation doesn't change your position. You are not going to support or align with the majority to approve the almost $400 million tax waiver. That will not happen.
Let me tell you, we have a country. MPP is behaving as if the world is coming to the end in December 7th. As if, apart from MPP, they are the only intelligent people in Ghana. And they can do whatever they want and then get... Let's wait. I'm being a bit emotional. But if you see what is happening in Parliament with this particular party in government, Ghanaians should be very careful. Very, very, very careful. And that is why they are doing everything so that they will maintain this government in power, because they know if there should be change of government, lots of things will come out. And this government, I'm so pained when I talk about this Gary project, what these people have done to Ghana.
Well, but if you say that a lot has happened in Parliament, and that when there's a change of government, we'll know what's happening. You are in Parliament, so if a lot has happened in Parliament, what did the minority do as well to help stop that?
We have done a lot. Minority will always have their say. Majority will always have their way. We'll have our say. We'll talk, and when it comes to voting, they will use their majority, and then they. But let me tell you, we've been able to use our numbers to block a lot of some of these deals. I think there are some right-thinking members, some few of them among the majority. So at times you make some argument, and they will yield to some of these things. We didn't forget that 200 million was the Sagame project. At least when you go to SAR, you see a lot of structures over there. But I'm talking about 200 million that they can't get. They were supposed to build retention ponds. They were supposed to dredge or door. They were supposed to build some drains, big drains in Accra. 4 years, if they had done that, what we are experiencing in Accra currently wouldn't have happened.
Right.
But this is where we are. And they want us to clap for them. Whatever they bring to Parliament, not you just keep quiet and then approve it for them, because if we say anything contrary to what MPP thinks, then we are being destructive. Is that what they are telling us? The minority doesn't even matter. Everything they bring, we have to approve it. Is that what they are telling us?
Well, thank you.
They are mistaken. At least we'll protect the government first. We'll protect Ghanaians. So when we see the thing is not right, the minority side will stand against it. Let them use their majority to approve it. But posterity will judge us right.
Indeed. Thank you very much for joining us. Appreciate you, Honorable. Vincent Opong Asamoah is Member of Parliament for the Doma West constituency in the Bono region, is the ranking on the Works and Housing Committee of Parliament, and also member of the Poverty Reduction Strategy Committee of Parliament, joining us here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7, also live on Kesmi 107.1 in Tamale and beyond, also on W93.5 in Wa and beyond. We're back shortly with the business news. Juliana Menua Fall is standing by with the details. Stay with us.
It's 25 years of music excellence, 25 years of creating and celebrating legends. Join us as we celebrate a quarter century of the Telecel Ghana Music Awards Festival. Saturday, 1st June at the Grand Arena from 7 p.m. It's the ultimate night of music, fashion, and unforgettable performances. Performing live, Stoneboy, Kwame Eugene, King Promise, Mr. Drew, Nasir, Amarado, King Paluta, Afia, Amare, Team Eternity, and many more. Limited tickets available for 500 CDs premium and 700 CDs VIP. For VVIP seats, call 050-1288-520. The 25th Telecel Ghana Music Awards is powered by Charterhouse with support from TV3, Guinness, Captain Morgan, Close Up, British Council, 3FM, and sponsored by
Telecel, connecting energies.
Hello, good evening. It's now time for the business segment on Hot Edition. Coming up tonight, Africa's biggest salt refinery to engage Ghanaian businesses in its value chain to create employment. We have details of this and more lined up for you. My name is Minuafu. Do stay with me. Now the details. CEO of Electrochem Ghana Limited, Abdul Razak Adam, says his outfit is going to engage local businesses in their entire value chain to create employment and promote economic growth. During an industrial visit by the Association of Ghana Industries to his outfit, he urged Ghanaian entrepreneurs to build capacity that will enable them take advantage of the opportunity.
You can imagine that Ghana will consume about 1 million metric tons of salt a year. This plant can produce over 4 million metric tons. In addition, there are peripheral industry within the country that also depend on salt. You have 14,000 different chemicals that use salt, including caustic soda and a whole lot of things, metals, wood, and what have you. They all use salt as a byproduct. Even the pharmaceutical industry, as you would realize, about 65% of their raw material is coming from salt. So there is great opportunity for everybody in the value chain.
Abdul Razak Adam is CEO of Electrochem Ghana Limited. In more stories, a report by Swiss Aid has indicated that Africa lost about 435 tons of gold valued at over $30 billion through smuggling in 2022. The gold is mostly from small-scale and artisanal miners and predominantly smuggled to the United Arab Emirates. The following three business reports has more.
Gold smuggling out of Africa has surged over the past decade, with hundreds of tons worth billions of dollars leaving the continent illegally each year. A report from Swiss Aid reveals that in 2022, 435 tons of gold, mostly from small-scale miners, was smuggled out of Africa valued at over $30 billion. The main destination, the United Arab Emirates, which took in 405 tons of this gold last year. Over the past 10 years, the UAE has received more than 2,500 tons of smuggled gold worth over $115 billion. Most of this gold comes from informal artisanal and small-scale mining, which supports millions of Africans, but often harms local communities and the environment. Swiss Aid's findings highlights the urgent need for stronger regulations and support for sustainable mining practices.
That was a report by my colleague Michael Ogbudu. In more stories, CEO of Electrochem Ghana Limited, Abdul Razak Adam, has underscored the economic importance of the entire value chain of commercial salt production. During an industrial visit, we took the story earlier, sorry for the confusion. Economist Abel Bachman is calling on government to take steps aimed at reducing taxes and duties for Ghana businesses to take advantage of the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. According to him, depreciation of the cedi has increased the cost of trade for many businesses, making them uncompetitive in the global market. He believes reducing taxes and duties will go a long way to alleviate the ordeal of industry.
If you look at the cost of doing business in Ghana, particularly in respect of interest rates, I mean, if you compare Ghana's interest rate with others, the surrounding countries, and today locally we have Africa Continental Free Trade Area, we are supposed to take advantage of that after. But the point is that because of high cost of production, high cost of doing business in Ghana, our businessmen cannot be competitive out there. And so what it means is that even though there could be demand for your goods and services as a result, because of high cost of production, you cannot meet the demand. Because then you can be competed out easily of the market by economies that offer lower interest rate to their exporters.
Okay, well, of economist Abel Bachman there, and that brings us to the end of the business segment on Hot Edition. For more stories, please log on to our website on 3news.com. Sports News is up next with Kelvin.
Well, let's get into the world of sports here on Hot Edition. My name is Calvin Owusu. Starting from the French Open, the Roland Garros, and defending champion Novak Djokovic moved efficiently through the gears once again to beat Spain's Roberto Cabales Baena and reach the French Open third round. Serbia's Djokovic 37 cruised to a 6-4, 6-1, 6-2 victory on another rain-soaked day in Paris to ensure he has reached the last 32 at the clay court Grand Slam for the 19th consecutive year. Now moving on to Arina Sabalenka, and in the women's division, she has underlined her French Open title credentials by completing another commanding straight set win to reach the third round at Roland Garros. The world number 2 took just 62 minutes to dismiss Japan's Moyuka Uchijima 6-2, 6-2 under the roof of court Philippe Chatrier. So that is it there from there. But in the French Open, there have been some rowdy fans, and most of the players have been complaining about it. Now, the French Open has stopped fans drinking alcohol in the stands in a bid to end unruly behavior, according to the tournament director Amélie Mauresmo. It comes after Belgium's David Goffin had chewing gum spat at him during a match against France Giovanni Impecci Pericard. And on Wednesday, women's defending champion Iga Swiatek pleaded that fans had to keep quiet during points and not to shout out. So that is it there from there. Now let's get into the world of football. And former Burnley boss Vincent Kompany has revealed his reasons behind becoming FC Bayern Munich coach. He's left Burnley to become the new boss of the Bavarians.
Consumes every minute of every day. So whilst I was being a coach, whilst I was doing my job, I didn't have any time to think about anything else. You know, when Max and Christoph called and eventually we spoke and met, I didn't have a plan in my head to do anything. I was just doing my job. And at the very end, just so you understand a little bit how I am as well, is at the very end you mentioned one club, but I'm a very private person. Very, very private person, and I was actually quite fortunate to have a lot of interest from other clubs as well. But I never went looking for anything. I was not interested in anything. I was happy to meet people, and I met good people, and that was my decision. It was, okay, I feel like the players, the people inside the club, when we speak about football, we see the same thing, we understand the same thing, also the values, what we believe in. And then I felt like, okay, I have to do this, you know, but I wasn't thinking too much about
Wasn't thinking too much about what he has to do now to the senior national team. The Black Stars of Ghana and players have started arriving in camp ahead of their 6-day campaign before they play against Mali on the 6th of June and then return to Ghana to play at the Barbara Sports Stadium. Thomas Brandon Asante is in camp, as well as Captain Thomas Partey is also in camp. Tariq Lamptey, Ali Duseidu, Salis Samed, and then Ibrahim Sulemana, Osman are all in there. Kamaldeen and the rest are also in camp. A lot are expected to arrive before the team officially begins the training sessions tomorrow. Well, notably, Kumasi Asante Kotoko goalkeeper Frederick Asari has been selected. This has raised a bit of concern about the quality of goalkeepers, with Lawrence Atizigi and Jojo Wallacott the top two goalkeepers. Now, goalkeeping coach for the Black Stars, Fatal Dada, has promised the best of pairs of hands for the team.
I have about 5 or 6 local goalkeepers in my books, which I've been communicating with them. They are goalkeepers coaches every week. They play a game, I take reports. I just wish we can invite 6 goalkeepers or 5 goalkeepers. Why it is about decision. And when there was the FIFA break, we had 10 days in Morocco to prepare for those 2 friendly matches. And these goalkeepers were there, and then we tried them. We learned a lot of tactics, and they were there. So the coach have a good idea about them. This qualify, you know, you can't try a player now. So the only time sometimes you can try a player is when you're going to play a friendly match. So I'm very hopeful maybe another time when there's a friendly match, hopefully we'll give another players or goalkeepers chance to play.
So that is from Fatal Dauda, the goalkeeping coach for the Black Stars. Now moving on, Asante Kotoko goalkeeper Frederick Asari has decided to prove himself worthy of a place in the Black Stars after being selected for the second successive time under Otto Addo.
Well, as you can see, not only in Ghana, but also around the world, even in Europe, Asia, Africa, we have Ghanaian goalkeepers over there. And even also in Ghana here, we have good goalkeepers. But for me to be called to the national team by coach and also his compliment to me, it's a great achievement to me. And I am truly happy for me to represent my country. It's a dream come true. Going forward, I think that I also have to do my best and repay the coach trust in me.
Well, that is Asante Kotoko SC goalkeeper and deputy captain Frederick Asari. Now let's finish off with some boxing. And ever since their historic bout on the 18th of May, the world has been waiting to know when Alexander Usyk and Tyson Fury will have their rematch. Usyk is the new undisputed heavyweight champion of the world, defeating Fury via split decision, but fans won't have to wait too long for the rematch. Usyk and Fury are scheduled to fight again on the 21st of December. Here is Frank Warren, boxing promoter, speaking about the agreement that has been made.
I haven't spoken to him for a few days now, but I spoke to him after the fight, and obviously when he got back, just to make sure he's okay. He was very disappointed, but very philosophical, and he just kept saying to me he wanted the rematch. The rematch was signed before the fight took place. The first fight took place anyway, and that date will be set I think within the next month or so. Both fighters said they want it, and we'll go from there. But it was a fabulous fight. Two absolute theaters who didn't leave anything in the ring in an epic fight for the 4 belts, most important fight of the 21st century. And I thought a very, very close fight. And I think we can get even a bigger one next time. It's going to be a much, much bigger event next time around.
Well, a much more bigger event next time around. Don't forget that the NBA Finals is also on. The Minnesota Timberwolves against the Dallas Mavericks comes up at 12:30 midnight. So all you need to do is to get ready. The Dallas Mavericks lead the Minnesota Timberwolves 3-1 in the best of 7 series. That'll be all for sports. Hot Edition continues. Beatrice, Edu, and Alfred Ocansey are still here.
Thank you very much, Kelvin Owusu-Ansah, for bringing us the latest in the world of sports. And you're still here on Hot Edition. Welcome to Campaign Trail. And on Campaign Trail tonight, the Electoral Commission's latest drive for voter transfer, replacement of lost ID cards and proxy voter registration have been marred once again by network challenges. The exercise, which began on March 30, May 30, that's today, at various centres, saw stagnation with EC officials unable to work efficiently. Judith Brown was at the old EC head office where 5 constituencies are stationed and gave us this report.
Day one of the voter transfer exercise at the old Electoral Commission head office experienced network challenges which significantly affected the smooth running of the exercise. While some patrons left the premises due to the network challenges, others waited in anticipation for the network to be restored. But party agents explained that this was a normal occurrence.
For their machine, sometimes that is how it is. The challenge is that sometimes, especially the first 2 days, the network didn't help us. So people who came, they need to go back and come the following day. And that one also caused the political parties.
Others, however, blamed the Electoral Commission for not being fully prepared before kick-starting the exercise.
The system is down. Nothing is working. So they are saying because it's first day. If you are not ready, why do you come? So being it first day is not an excuse. You should be ready. So far as you've advertised it long ago that today you are starting, your system must be ready for it.
The Electoral Commission official at Ayawaso West, Lydia Ijiri, however, assured that the issues would be resolved.
Because today is the first day of the exercise, we believe that these things wouldn't halt the exercise, and we know that it will be smooth as the days goes by.
She further explains the criteria for people who are eligible for the transfer of votes.
Those who are qualified for transfers are those people who have stayed at their current residency for more than 1 year. And when they come, they are supposed to come with their voter's ID card and a proof of their new residency to the Electoral Commission, to the returning officer, for him or her to process the application.
The exercise is expected to end on June 14, 2024. Judith Brown.
Now, the flag bearer of the NDC, John Mahama, has outlined plans to create a new administrative city outside of the Greater Accra region to cater for government services. There has been congestion in the capital city that has affected business growth and smooth delivery of government services in recent times, despite the country's decentralization policy. Meeting the European Union ambassador and the EU Chamber of Commerce, John Mahama said that his next administration will start the plan to design the feasibility work for a possible 20-year achievement.
We will start a feasibility study and a plan to build a new city. Accra is getting gridlocked. The time has come for us to move some parts of the government services out of Accra. Accra will continue to be the capital, but we'll move part of it outside. There's land on the Accra Plains, there's land on the other bank of the Volta Lake and all that. Already we're going to have a port terminal at Mpakadam to move cargo to the northern part of the country. There's a lot of land there, and so we can move some of the ministries, agencies and departments out of the city so that we decongest Accra, because Accra has expanded to its limits. The way it is going, if we're not careful, it will be difficult to continue to manage it as a viable city. And so we'll start the plan and the design and the feasibility. I believe that this will be a project that will take maybe 20 years to fulfill, but we need to start somewhere. And so we'll start, others will come and continue from where we leave off.
That was the flag bearer of the opposition NDC, John Mahama. We're joined on the line now by Professor Divine Koku Ahaji. He's head of Center for Settlement Studies, KNUST. Good evening to you, sir. Thank you for joining us on Campaign Trail on Hot Edition.
Thank you very much, and thank you to your listeners.
I'm sure you've heard the former president there proposing a second city administrative one. From where you sit as the head of Center for Settlement Studies, how feasible is this idea?
Well, thank you very much. I think on a face value, one would say it's not a bad idea, depending on if you all understand the vision connected to it. But I think what we have to understand is that cities always have the positive and the negative side. The positive side would be that cities will have to have innovation, production, and trade. And then the negative side is that cities will always be noisy, dirty, and crowded. And so the mere fact that we are creating a new city does not mean that we are not going to encounter problems. I think the challenge that we have had in this country is that we have not been able to develop policies to combat the urban problems that we have, because it is by developing the policies that can combat urban problems that we face in the cities, that we are likely to create a vitality in cities. And so the new saying of it is something that we need to be very to be interrogated deeply. And as I heard him, he's now saying they are not going to put the designs and other things together. So on face value, it's a nice idea, because in the new urban agenda, as even enshrined in the AU 2063 agenda, cities are to be used as pathway for development. And that is why everybody is rallying towards the city to take advantage of the development over there. But if we are going to do this, especially moving only the administrative, because cities will have to thrive on trade and innovation. If it is going to be only the administrative, I will see some difficulty there, But then one of the major things will be for us to be able to consider urban transportation and how this will help in encouraging trade across boundaries. And then that perhaps could work in leveraging the situation and helping, as we are saying. But then the bottom line is that whether you create the new cities, you need to be able to design policies to combat the emerging problems that will come relating to noise, congestion, and what you all see as dirty or the environmental waste in the system. Yeah.
So we'll come to your proposals as regards what must be considered in crafting this new city, as it were. I must say that I wouldn't say that I have all the information on this proposal from the former president being given to us now. But in considering areas, which one would you propose, especially when Pram has been on the lips of some people as the next capital city of the country?
Well, obviously, in the past, and as it's always relevant, having a city close to the coast is critical, so that we can also take advantage of the blue economy. But then at the end of the day, a city is going to thrive on six main things, which will be the market forces in the city, land use within cities, urban transportation, and obviously, as the population is growing, how are we going to take care of crime and public policy? And then another important issue is housing and public policy. And then one would say maybe perhaps the very critical issue here is local government expenditure and taxes. So the question will be, even in our current situation, how have we been able to fairly manage these things, be able to learn lessons and take it to the cities that we want to build. So where some of us are a bit afraid is that if you have no good lessons to take from what we currently have and say we are moving to a new city, perhaps we will move in there and the same problems will follow us. So I think there needs to be some evidence to show that even with the current situation, things are working in terms of management of the cities, and then the lessons learned can be taken on board whilst we try to move to other areas.
Prof, you just answered my next question, so I'm coming back to the question I just asked you, which is about the areas, and I was looking at the communities. That's why I mentioned Pram. Looking at the fundamentals that you've just laid out right now, and of course you would hear the government talk about the need for us to champion decentralization. Which areas within the country do you think that at least there's a bit more foundation when it comes to these elements that the former president could consider that looking at this very area, it will not be too difficult to establish a second administrative city?
Well, as it is now, I think there's a need to also have a bit of a centrality in terms of people traveling across the country to access the facilities, especially as you know that our transportation system is not that good. So I would think that if you have a situation where maybe perhaps one could have said that maybe Kumasi could have been a place that to be considered looking at its centrality, but as to whether we have made the preparatory grounds to move it there would be something that you need to consider. But then I will say that perhaps the Pampam idea would be good because it's still very close to the coast. Since we haven't developed our transportation system, including air travel and others to the highest level. And don't forget that as we are moving into digitization, the issue of AI and other things have become issues that one needs to consider in this urban environment. And these are all things that will have to be considered in terms of developing the new city. So anywhere close to Accra, like Pampam, I think will be a good choice here.
Anywhere close to Pampam will be a good choice. His last words there, but those were the words of Professor Divine Koku Ahaji. He's head of Center for Settlement Studies, KNUST, speaking about the proposal by the flag bearer of the position NDC to get a second administrative city for Ghana. And that's how we end the campaign trail on Hot Edition. And that's how we also do end Hot Edition here on 3FM 92.7. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Beatrice. I did this with Alfred Ocansey. Log on to 3news.com for more news. Have a good evening and do enjoy the rest of our programs.